Hey guys, how's it going? Zach Butler YGO here, back with another deck. One of the decks I've actually had that's been highly requested has been my take on the Dark World strategy. The Dark World deck has been pretty hit or miss since it came out, just in general back, I think in like 2005, all the way back then, and it's gotten, two structure decks, the second one being the most recent one, which has just been incredible, giving us, retrains on a lot of classic cards and some pretty awesome cards in general. So I wanted to show you guys my version of the deck, if I was to play it in any tournaments, kind of how I would play it. And if we can get this video to 25 likes, I'll do some combo hands with it. It's pretty free flow because you're just drawing like most of your deck. You draw 20, 30 cards in a turn. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun if you like kind of that like heavy draw kind of deck. But I'll show you guys the main side and extra that I kind of just whipped up really quick and I've been messing around with. If you guys have any suggestions or anything like that, let me know down in the comments below, as always, and we'll just kind of jump right into it. So first up, for the monsters, it's mostly monsters, honestly. We've got double Rainbow and double Grapha. So the reason for 2 and 2 of these is because you also have your 3 copies of Snow, and you also have the Dark Spirit's Mastery. That's one of my favorite cards to play in decks like this. So you actually have access to these very easily. And you're actually just looping the same 2 copies of these over and over again, so having extra copies becomes redundant. The reason why I do like 2 and 2, though, is just to have a higher percentage of drawing one of the 4 in my opening hand. It puts me just under 50% of opening up with one of the 4 in my opening hand. Then you have the Dark Spirit's Mastery and stuff, which actually puts you over the 5 card break point, so you actually have an over 50% chance to open up with one of them in your opening hand, which is pretty great. Then for the other Dark World monsters, we have 3 Snow Unlit of Dark Worlds. This one searches out every Dark World card in your deck, as we all know. This is one of the best ones. And then we have Genta, 3 Genta Gateman of Dark World. This is by far one of the most powerful cards Dark World could have gotten. It literally reads like a custom card. What you can do is you can discard it to search for the Gateway to Dark World. I believe that's what the field spell is called, or the Gates of Dark World. And then when Genta is banished from the graveyard, you can special summon it, and then that part is a hard once per turn, but the discarding to search is not. So you can actually search for multiple copies of Gates of Dark World with the same Genta. Then we have 2 Silva, Warlord of Dark World. This one's probably the most important one, honestly, besides the 1 Ceruli. These are how you hand loop for 4, and thanks to 2 spells that I play in the deck, you can actually get to all 5 cards, unless your opponent hand traps you and hand loops himself. And that's kind of the whole point of the Dark World deck, is it's just a hand loop deck. So that's all the Dark World monsters I play. You'll notice there's no Brow, there's no Gold, there's none of that. I just felt like those cards didn't really contribute to my winning hands, and they only helped to contribute to them when I was already so far ahead that there's just no need for that kind of utility in the deck. But if you feel that those kinds of cards are useful, by all means, add them in. So then I played just 2 Nessie. The reason for 2 Nessie is that you actually already play so many starter cards between all of your dangers and then your Gentas and your gates and things like that, that you have so many starter cards that the second and third copies of Nessie actually start to be negative in their impact. They don't really help you get any further into the deck than you already are. And Nessie's level is not ideal, but you still want to have at least 2 copies in there just to make sure that you have more starter cards. Then we have double Mothman, effectively 4 with the 2 Nessies. Mothman is very powerful in this deck because it's a level 4, which is really good thanks to the extra deck. Double Chupacabra. This is one I'm not totally sold on. Chupacabra being a level 4 is great. Being able to bring back other dangers is great. The main thing I like about Chupacabra, though, is that it's a fiend. So you can actually banish it for your copies of the Gate of Dark World, which in some of my testing hands has come up. And then there's 1 Bigfoot, which is just a level 8, and then 1 Thunderbird as well. Originally it was 2 Bigfoots, and then I went with 1 and 1 because I wanted to have some face down removal threat to search off a Nessie. Just gives Nessie a little bit more utility while still being a good level 8 monster, and it's only 200 attack points smaller, so it's not like that attack point difference is really going to matter most of the time. And then I play 1 Zephyros as just a really good extender, because you can, return your gates, you can return your Dark Worlds, you can return your dangers even. and then, get to reuse them. And then for defensive cards, I actually play 2 main deck Radiant, the multi-dimensional kaiju. One cool thing about Radiant is that it is a fiend, so it can be used with the Gates of Dark World, which is pretty great because it means that you can actually use it in your opening hand. Sort of it's kind of like a Garnet, but it's a defensive Garnet, which is pretty great. And then I play 1 Lava Golem as well. Similarly, it's a fiend and it's a level 8, so it can actually help with the trade-in, which I do play. So these defensive cards actually get usefulness outside of just being able to answer a Rise Heart, or if they go like a Rise Heart, Shangri-Ira type things like that. So that's all the monsters. For the spells, I play 3 Dark Spirits Mastery. This is a card I'm very fond of. It's been in a lot of my Punk decks lately too. What it does is you discard 1 card for cost, so it can't work with the Dark Worlds, unfortunately. But then you search out 1 level 8 Fiend monster from your deck or graveyard and add it to your hand. So what's really cool, actually, is that, let's say you go through your Rainbow and your Grapha, and you draw this later on in the turn. You can still use it to actually add them back to your hand and get extra utility that way, which is pretty great. And it also means that you have effectively 4 copies of Lava Golem, as well as 5 copies of Grapha and the Rainbow, because you can count these as 2 additional copies when you're going through your cycles of your hands. So you effectively have these as your level 8s that are the Fiend monsters. So you actually have 5 searchable level 8 Fiend monsters to go with your copy of trade-in. And I really like that level of flexibility in deck building, and it's something I always look for with kind of cute little unique spell cards and tech cards, because what this does now is this means that this card, thanks to Lava Golem being in the deck, it is not only a starter card in that it gets you to your Rainbow and your Grapha, but it's also a defensive card because it can get you to Lava Golem, so it gives it multiple layers of efficiency, and I really like having that in the deck. Then you have your 3 Gates of Dark World, of course. This card's insane. You banish a Fiend and then discard a Fiend and draw a card, which is always insane. In this kind of deck, you're just ripping through your deck so much. 2 copies of Allure of Darkness. Banishing cards isn't as good in this deck, so I wasn't really a fan of that, but sometimes your hands, you just need to see more cards, so I just wanted to have that. And I think these are like 39 and 40 for cards. Then for the Dark World themed spells, we have 1 Accession. This is your fusion spell. It's a quick play, which is really ridiculous. It can banish from the graveyard to do it, which is always nice. I like that kind of, again, I like that flexibility of being able to either discard or banish to do your fusions. But what's also really cool is you can just discard this earlier in your turn, and then you can get it back, and that can actually help you do some of your hand loops, which is pretty great. And you can only use each effect of it once per turn. So you could discard it early in your combo, and then later on in your combo, if you have like your Cerulean Silva loop and you need to finish it off, you can discard Cerulean to add this back to your hand, and then Cerulean discard Silva, and then you get to, rip apart their hand even more. This card is just really good. 1 Dark World Archives, just another good draw card, but it's also able to help for game pushes. I like this card a lot, actually, especially when I'm going second is when I tend to feel like this card really starts to shine. But it also just lets you discard any card to draw 2. So it can turn some of those breakier cards into draw 2s, which is really good. Then we have 1 Charge into a Dark World. This was a card I didn't actually really realize how good it was. So what it does is it lets you target 1 level 4 or lower Fiend monster in your graveyard, and it special summons it, and then you discard 1 Fiend monster. So you can use this even to bring back Chupacabra, for example, and then that can give you that, or most of the time you'll use it to get back Snow or Genta, and then you'll return that to your hand with your Rainbow, and then return the Rainbow with Grapha and do all your kind of cool stuff like that. But so this is just a really cool card as a 1-of, and it's a searchable Dark World card, which I really like. Then for the spell, the last 4 cards in the deck actually are just these 4. I like to call these like the game-ending spells, sort of. So Trade-In is just really good because you play so many level 8s. So that one isn't really just ridiculous. But these 3 are kind of like your 3 big game-ending spells. So Triple Tactics Thrust and Triple Tactics Talent seem like they probably wouldn't be that good in this kind of deck. However, due to Cerulean, these 2 cards actually become live because Cerulean summons itself to your opponent's field when it's discarded, and then it triggers to make you discard a card. So that means your opponent has activated a monster effect, making both of these live. And what's really cool is that Thrust can then add talents if this Cerealia is still in the field. So usually if you'll have Thrust, you'll activate Thrust before you do anything with your Cerealia, activate Talents, rip a card out of their hand, and that'll be the last. That's how you get the 5th card to rip. And then Card Destruction is obviously just one of the most powerful spell cards ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, it's legitimately one of the best cards, and given that no one else is playing graveyard-oriented decks right now, this card gets extra value. So you can search it out with your copy of Triple Tactics Thrust with pretty good ease. So the extra deck is pretty open right now. I haven't totally refined it yet. This is very much a concept deck, and I just wanted to show you guys kind of where I was at with it. But so right now I'm playing 2 Grapha, Dragon, Overlord, of Dark World. This card's just really good. Turns any monster effect, normal spell, or normal trap into your opponent, meaning you. Discards 1 card, and then when they can finally destroy it, you can summon out regular Grapha. And what's really cool is on its own, it's already 3,200. With the field spell, it goes up to 35. If you summon it under Saryuja, it goes up to 38. So it's already almost half their life points in total on its own. Then for rank 4s, I play Dagaris the Timeless, Baguska, and then I actually play Evilstorm Nightmare. So this is one I haven't seen a lot of people playing. And I'm not sure if there's a reason for it, but I think that this card in a Kashtira format is really powerful. Because what you can do is you can actually set it up so you can summon this in defense position at the end of your combo because it is a fiend, and so even if you use like your Muckracker and stuff and you're locked into fiends, you can still summon Nightmare. And then if they summon a Kashtira monster, you can use its effect to set it face down, so it's effectively like playing Book of Moon, but it's in your extra deck. And that is really good because as we've seen, Book of Moon and Book of Eclipse are very powerful cards and are being played by the majority of players right now for that exact reason. Being able to turn monsters face down is really good. So being able to do that without having to actually draw those cards is even better. For the rank 8s, I play 1 Coach King Giant Trainer. This is actually also how you win in time. One of the issues I have with decks like this is a lot of times they take a really long time to play. If you think back to like Goki, for example, your average combo took like 10 minutes. And if you did that and then your opponent did that, that's 20 minutes of your clock gone right there. Heaven forbid you go into like games 2 or 3 and you're still doing your full combos. It could take a long time. This deck is no different. Your turn 1 can take 10-15 minutes potentially if you're waiting for responses and things like that. Obviously in combo videos, it always looks like it's a lot faster. In reality, it's not. But this actually lets you burn your opponent in time because it just takes 3 level 8s, and then up to thrice per turn you can detach material, draw a card, and if it's a monster, your opponent takes 800 damage, and you can do that 3 times, like I said. So that's actually 2,400 damage, which is pretty good. And it's a really good way to use like your rainbows and your Graphas and things like that. And then I play 138 just as spell negation, because one of the things I noticed was when I was playing the Tearlament Punk deck that I had mentioned before, you would end on Grapha Fusion a lot. And Grapha's Fusion is great, but it loses to Book of Eclipse. So this actually helps you layer that, so you have regular negation and quick play spell negation. Since you don't really have a way to make like synchros or anything like that, at least that I know of, maybe someone can point something out to me and then I'll have my mind blown. Without playing like bad cards like the, I guess you could play like Fabled Suburl and stuff like that, and that wouldn't be terrible because then you could make Baron. So that's an idea too. But I didn't really like that route, so we just went with these. And then 1 Zeus. A lot of times this will probably get ripped out of your extra deck. That's fine. You're not really ever planning to use it. You're probably going to end the game on your first battle phase, honestly. You're just going to rip their field apart and just attack for game. Then for the Link monsters, we have Security Dragon, Akashic Magician, and Muckracker. These are all for your loop. Again, you're trying to hand loop your opponent for all 5 of their cards, potentially, if you can. At least 4, usually. And even if you only do 4, then they have to answer your field full of problem cards. It's just 2 cards, and that's going to be very difficult to do. And these 3 allow you to do that, so that's what they're there for. They also can do some really neat things, like Security Dragon can return your Kaiju to your hand. Same with Akashic Magician. So you can punish people for not playing around those zones by having... So if they don't play around the Akashic Magician, it's just naturally good. If they do play around it and you can still make a Security Dragon and co-link it, it's really good. Turn 1, they get used for the combo. So they're both good on turn 1 and turn 2, which is really nice. And then I play Nightmare Cerberus and Nightmare Phoenix. These are both fiends, so if you get fiend locked, they're great, and they're also monster removal and spell trap removal, which is nice. And then 2 link 4s, 1 Saryuja Skull Dread and 1 Axis Go Talker. This is for going for game, and this is for your turn 1 combo. I found Apollousa being very weak. Initially, Saryuja was actually going to be Apollousa, but I feel like the problem with the format isn't monster effects. It tends to be spells and traps. And on top of that, with Kaiju seeing an increase in play, as well as Lava Golem still being fairly popular and Nibiru being good games 2 and 3, Apollousa gets a lot worse. So I just decided to forego that altogether. And then I'll show you guys the side deck I kind of whipped up to, just in case you guys want to take this to a tournament. First up is 3 Nibiru, the Primal Being. So one of the things I was discussing with one of my testing partners is that at least game 1, as a Kashtira player, I feel like you want to just go wide. You want to just go for it. Most people have started to cut Nibiru for Kaiju, so you can punish them by just going wide and doing as much as you can. And because of that, you have to side Nibiru to prevent them from being able to do that continually. And it's also just good in their like random rogue matchups. Like heaven forbid you play the mirror match, you can Nibiru them, and that's really great. It's kind of hit or miss against the Kashtira matchup, but I feel like going second, I definitely want to have it. Because this deck has no true normal summon, I want to decide 3 Denko Sekkas for the Labyrinth and Traptrix matchups. For when I go second, I just want to make sure that I can punish them for sitting down across the table and being unfortunate enough that I draw this card. And because you're seeing so much of your deck through your draws and stuff, you're going to see this card a lot more quickly than most other decks will. Then I only side 2 spells. I side 1 Harpy's Feather Duster again. Going second, you're going to see it more often, and 1 Change of Heart. And then for the trap cards, there's 2 Eradicator Epidemic Virus. So this is really cool because of Triple Tactics Thrust. You actually have 3 copies of it because you can just thrust to add it to your hand, or you're just going to draw it anyway. But against like Labyrinth, you just call Trap. Obviously against Traptrix, you call Trap. Against Kashtira, I've been citing this in though, and I call Spell, and that tends to just rip apart their entire hand. You can even wait until the Unicorn comes out, and then you just activate this and you call Spell, and whatever spell they add with Unicorn is just gone. So that's one option. This card, I think, is actually really well positioned this format. It was either this or Anti-Spell, and I wanted to have this just in case, because it had more flexibility. Then we have the 2 Evenly Matched. Again, with Thrust, it's at 3, but you also just have so much draw power that even if you can't afford Thrust, because I know they are very expensive right now, you'll still be able to get to this relatively easily, and you can change around your deck composition a little bit as well. And then the last thing I cited was 3 Skill Drains. This card's just really good right now. It's very good, and then all of your monsters are just big. You can just turn this into a beatdown deck, honestly, and you'd be totally fine. So yeah, that's the basic concept of the deck. If you can't afford cards like Triple Tactics Thrust or Triple Tactics Talent, for example, because I think those are the only 2 like truly expensive cards in the deck. Talents is obviously a lot cheaper than it used to be, but it's still, you know, I know a lot of players, you know, are working on budgets. If you can't play these kinds of cards, you could definitely like main deck stuff like Skill Drain. You could main deck stuff like a single Eradicator. You could play Upstart Goblin, extra trade-ins, extra lures. You have so many options that don't be discouraged if you don't have these cards. I definitely still think this deck is very viable, and it's a great budget option too. Looking in the extra deck, if you can't afford certain extra deck cards like maybe Axis Code Talker, you can just cut that for an Apollousa. Zeus, again, isn't necessary. And I think outside of that, really, the extra deck is fairly cheap too. But that's all for me today. If you guys enjoyed this, let me know with a comment, a like, and a subscription, please. Again, I really appreciate it. And if you want to pick up any of these cards, make sure to use the affiliate link found in the description below. A portion of that does go towards the channel and helps me out while you're helping yourselves out getting these awesome cards. Greatly appreciate that. And until next time, guys, have a wonderful day.